banco que hace que llegues a donde querés llegar. Banco Provincia, de tu lado.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Bienvenidos. Nuevo programa de Economía y Finanzas por Cablevisión. Hoy traemos un programa que trata de la relación de la educación con la economía. Justamente, obviamente la educación de nuestros hijos, siempre lo decimos, de nuestros jóvenes, tiene que ver incluso con la riqueza o pobreza de una nación, con el impacto en la relación con el empleo, con los niveles salariales, con la productividad. Siempre decimos que tenemos que estar formando a nuestros hijos y a nuestros jóvenes lo mejor posible en la rama que uno pueda acceder, pero ya por supuesto que el nivel secundario ya es un piso, realmente finalizar el nivel secundario es algo que necesariamente todos los jóvenes tienen que tener, y de ahí en adelante, bueno, o tener un oficio, o tener un nivel terciario, un nivel universitario. Incluso en algunos universitarios se necesita luego también algún posgrado, alguna especialización, porque el mundo de hoy requiere este tipo de capacitaciones y de actualización permanente. Eso es lo que tenemos que tener en cuenta, estar permanentemente actualizados, permanentemente seguir el flujo de información, el flujo de las necesidades del mercado, ver un poco en el mundo dónde va la tendencia, dónde va la tendencia de los empleos. Ustedes saben que cerca de 7 empleos, en los próximos 10 años va a haber 7 empleos nuevos, de los cuales 5 o 6 ya directamente no están ni creados, ni todavía están identificados, que tienen que ver con robótica, con nuevas tecnologías, con desarrollos tecnológicos, una serie de condimentos técnicos que nuestros jóvenes tienen que saberlo. O sea, no podemos seguir formando jóvenes con estructuras del pasado, con estructuras que por ahí en el futuro no van a tener inserción laboral. Entonces es importante siempre estar viendo dónde va la tendencia, dónde va el mundo, cuáles son las carreras con mayor salida laboral, porque en definitiva, obviamente, cualquier persona a futuro tiene que tener un sustento propio, independientemente después de la carrera o el hobby que uno tenga. Puede tener una carrera de grado, una carrera terciaria, con algo que tenga una salida laboral, y luego tener algún hobby, alguna otra actividad paralela o simultánea que también lo haga crecer intelectualmente o ser más feliz. Bien, hoy lo que tenemos es un especialista internacional, una autoridad reconocida en el mundo, es doctor en Economía en MIT, Eric Hansunken, que en el paso en Argentina, cuando estuvo recientemente, la periodista Luciana Vázquez, en Conversaciones con la Nación, tuvo una entrevista específica con él, especial y exclusiva con él. La entrevista está en inglés, pero tiene una traducción simultánea en castellano, con letras bien grandes debajo de la pantalla, así que lo pueden llevar tranquilamente y ir llevando la entrevista tranquilamente, porque la verdad que es muy clara, es pausada también la forma de hablar de ambos, del periodista y del especialista, así que es interesante para verlo, porque tiene justamente una bajada entre la relación de la economía y la educación, un poco lo que estamos hablando ahora. Está bueno tener una vista internacional también. Hemos tenido también en nuestros programas distintos actores locales y nacionales respecto del tema de educación, pero bueno, esta es una relación específica y con una visión internacional que siempre viene bien tenerla a mano. Así que míralo.
Hoy vamos a hablar de un tema que en lo personal me apasiona, la relación entre la economía y la educación, entre cómo la educación que recibimos nosotros, que reciben nuestros hijos, tiene que ver con la riqueza o con la pobreza de una nación, y bajándolo mucho más a tierra, cómo esa relación impacta en los empleos, en la calidad de los empleos que podamos conseguir en el futuro, en nuestros niveles salariales, en nuestra productividad. Y vamos a hablar de todo eso con una de las autoridades reconocidas en todo el mundo en el tema. Tenemos una visita internacional, me refiero a Eric Hanushek. Eric Hanushek es un doctor en Economía por el MIT, que trabaja e investiga en la Universidad de Stanford y hace décadas que se dedica a pensar temas vinculados con la economía de educación, la calidad de los docentes atravesados por las variables económicas, la productividad de los conocimientos que la escuela ofrece. Está en Argentina en ocasión del 7º Foro de Calidad Educativa que organizó la ONG Educar 2050 en el marco de su campaña Yo Voto Educación, para intentar instalar definitivamente el valor de la educación en la Argentina. Así que bueno, vamos a tener esta charla con Eric Hanushek. Thank you so much, Eric, for being here tonight.
I appreciate the opportunity.
It is a great pleasure and honor having you here in the educational segment of Conversaciones. I know you have launched a couple of months ago a new book. The title of this book is The Knowledge Capital of Nations, Education and the Economics of Growth, which is a focus on a thesis that you have been working on for many years, the relationship between education and growth and the cause-effect relationship that they maintain, as far as I understood. So could you elaborate on this relationship, please?
I'd be happy to. Economists have been looking at why some nations grow faster than others for about the last 25 years and have been trying to figure out what factors influence long-run growth. This is what happens over 30 or 40-year periods. What economists have always done is focused on human capital or the skills of the people. But until recently, we've had very poor measures of the skills of people. We've relied on years of schooling as a measure of what people know in different countries. But it's obvious that that's a pretty bad measure because it assumes, for example, that each year the kids in Japan learn at the same rate as the kids in Peru.
Yeah.
And we know that that's just not right.
Yes.
What my co-author and I, Ludger Woosman, have done is to put together data on international achievement tests that have been given for the last actually almost 50 years now.
Like PISA exam.
And PISA in the last 15 years, PISA from the OECD has been the important one. What these tests do is take, say, a math problem and walk it around the world,
Yes.
and to see how people do on this test in different countries and use that as a measure of how good the people are, how much they know. What we found is that there is a very, very close relationship between the skills of the people as measured by these tests and economic growth. What we do in the book is first to try to just describe that relationship, and secondly to try to convince people that this is a causal relationship, that by which I mean if you increased the achievement of students, would you then subsequently see higher growth rates? Or is it just something else, that economies that run well also have good schools, but it's not that schools cause growth, it's that
Yes.
just goes along?
Yes.
We have at least convinced ourselves and some other people that it's very plausible to think of this as a causal relationship, that if a country can in fact improve its schools, it should see better growth in the future.
So quality of the education and not years of schooling is the main key to which leads to the growth of a nation. This is the
Absolutely. Your simple sentence summarizes what took me several paragraphs to do.
Well, you explained it very well, so I got it.
That is exactly the
Okay.
story.
Before going on with the questions, I want to clarify this. When you speak about the skills that a country should value, that the school is providing or that the school is helping to develop or not, which kind of skills you are speaking about?
Well, the skills that we measure on these tests are largely math and science ability. There's some test of reading. But I think that these are really just proxies for the whole set of things that you learn in school. So we wouldn't say that we know that you shouldn't teach history, you should only teach math.
Okay.
We would say that those all go together.
Yes.
But we do know that you have to have strong basic skills in math and science and reading if you're going to get the advanced skills.
Okay.
So people don't become physicists without knowing basic algebra.
Okay, and another question clarifying this issue. There's a new issue which is very trendy in the last years. I'm speaking about social skills.
Yes.
Yes, there is another scholar, Heckman, who says that you first have to build social skills and then on top of social skills, or social skills being like a trampoline to build cognitive skills, the skills to learn math and science and language. How these social skills fit in the model you are presenting?
Well, I think that what we've seen is that social skills are very complementary to cognitive skills.
Yes. Okay.
The research on cognitive skills is much more developed, and the measures are better and the analysis is better than in non-cognitive or social skills.
Yes.
But it's an interesting hypothesis that people are working on, and I think it's something to pay attention to. But what we do know is that cognitive skills have great rewards to individuals, people that know more, earn more in the labor market.
Yes.
And it has great benefits to nations, because nations where the population has more cognitive skills, which we call knowledge capital in the book, is an important determinant. And so we think that it's an interesting strand of research that Professor Heckman is doing, and I don't think that there's anything really that he has said or we have said that's in opposition to the other's work. We just know that from a country standpoint, from a policy standpoint, paying attention to what we know how to measure is the correct thing to do now.
Okay. Imagine this situation. You have the lack or the bad luck of being appointed Ministry of Education in a given country, and you have this goal to improve the cognitive skills of students in this country. But of course, you have limited resources, financially speaking. So you have to decide where to invest so as to get this goal. The three areas that the president of this country said you should invest on, and you have to pick just one. To pick up just one are, for example, classroom size. The other, the extension of mandatory of school years, and finally, teacher quality. In which of these areas would you invest the total amount of money you have?
This takes actually little thought. The research is very clear. You ought to invest in teacher quality. The evidence from around the world on the importance of teacher quality is just overwhelming, that's the most important part of schools. Class size doesn't have a very consistent relationship with performance, in part because different qualities of teachers can deal with large or small classes.
Yes.
And extending the school year without being concerned about the quality of what people are getting doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it is related to your first answer.
Yes.
Okay. You know, in Argentina, for many years, in the last decade, more or less, the government and many educators have been very worried in extending the school years and including more people inside the educational system. But the quality of the skills developed in the school have not improved. So Argentina has been doing the wrong approach for improving education?
Well, unfortunately, it probably has. This has been actually a problem across all of Latin America, where there has been an expansion of the amount of schooling, the years of schooling, and how many people are in school at every level. But the schooling hasn't been very high quality. And so people are sitting in schools a lot more, but they aren't learning anything. And it turns out that doesn't count for very much. What really counts is what you learn.
But so we should quit the idea of going to school?
No, not at all. Not at all. I would lose my union card as a professor if I suggested that schooling wasn't important. What I'm suggesting is that you should not just expand schools without paying first attention to the quality of the schools you're giving. And partly this has been argued on equity grounds that if we can, we should get everybody into schooling and then we'll worry about trying to improve the schools. What we've found actually is that it's very hard to take a bad school and turn it into a good school. So if you start with a bad school, you might end up with a bad school. And to me, it's not equitable to put somebody in a school for longer periods of time when they aren't learning anything. Equity comes from ensuring that everybody gets a high-quality education as opposed to just seat time.
So it is a question of cause-effect chain. If we have better teachers, we will have quality education, very high quality education, and this will lead to growth rate, the increasing growth rate. No?
Absolutely.
So how do you do with a system where the quality of teacher is not very good? What if you were the ministry, the first measure you decide which it will be?
Well, just saying that you want high-quality teachers leads to this problem that you're just bringing up, is that you can't just write a law that says only high-quality teachers can be there, because you have to have some way of doing it. To me, there are lots of changes in the incentives and the institution of schools that can promote higher quality teachers. For example, the first thing, and this is something that's important for Argentina, is having clear accountability, testing of students, making it public, making it related to schools and teachers, in my opinion, is the first thing you have to do. It's hard to imagine any reform of schools that works if you don't have a good accountability system.
And also because you have this concept, you introduce the concept of value added, which relates the grades, the scores that students get in the standardized tests with the performance of teachers. You make a cause-effect connection.
Right. So I'm glad you brought that up. This leads to some confusion, both of educators and the public. It's not, you don't want to rate a school on the absolute performance of the students, because students come to schools with different preparation. And so the schools that serve the middle-class parents that are working very hard with their kids look like they're doing better because they have higher scores. The parents prepare them. And similarly for disadvantaged families and schools that serve disadvantaged kids, they might come much less prepared and have lower scores. But what you want to reward schools and teachers on is how much do they add to the learning and knowledge of the kids that come to them. So what's the value added?
It's not a comparison between schools, but it is a comparison with the history of these kids.
Absolutely.
And how much a teacher is given to them.
Absolutely, and you can compare that across schools, because what we found in the U.S., where we have extensive studies of this, is that some schools that we normally call bad schools because they serve a very disadvantaged population, they have low test scores and other problems. We find very good teachers in those schools. They're just hidden in there. And that's what we tend to find in lots of places, that you can have very good schools that still don't bring the kids up to the level that you want them to
and why
be
is
at.
that?
Because it's hard work. Education is really hard, and it takes a lot. You have to build upon prior education. That's why early learning, some preschool that Professor Heckman has talked a lot about and that I agree with, help to prepare kids to go into school. But primary school and lower secondary school are extraordinarily important places because the rest of learning builds on those.
Yes. And because the thing is, well, teachers are important. We have two options here. We have to pick very good candidates at the end of university teaching university, for example, if there is a school who prepares teachers. Well, once they finish the education to be teachers, we could try to pick up the best candidates. Or we could accept that the workforce is like this, the level they have is this, and so we have to do something with them. What is better, training the teachers you have, or try to select best candidates once they have finished university education?
I think it's more the latter, in part because research has not been very good at all at predicting or identifying what characteristics or skills are most important for effective teachers.
Okay.
And if you don't know what works in the classroom, it's hard to know how to develop a training program for what you don't know.
Okay.
On the other hand, once somebody is in the classroom, it's very easy to tell who does really well and who does really poorly.
Yes.
Usually we don't want to make decisions at that point, but that's frankly what the research says has to be done. There has to be a better effort at evaluating the performance of teachers and using that information for making personnel decisions. You want to reward the people that are really good and that you want to keep in the classroom, and you don't want to reward and you don't want to keep the worst of the teachers because they are actually harming kids.
Just 3 short questions, and the last maybe is the longer, but the 2 first are shorter. You have a very agreeable idea that if you desire to fire the 6 to 7% of the worst teachers of all the teachers in a country, the improvement in the quality of education of this given country will boom from the bottom to the top in a very short period.
Yes.
Is that right?
That is correct. Let me put that into Argentinian perspective.
Yeah.
If you replace the bottom 4 to 6% of the teachers, if the teacher distribution is the same as we see in the U.S., if you replace the bottom 4 to 6% of teachers with an average teacher, looks like Argentina could, in fact, improve up to the level of Uruguay. Okay. And improving to the level of Uruguay, measured on the PISA test, according to the historical record of the impact on growth, would lead to eventually an economic value that's 3 times the current GDP of Argentina.
And how long will it take?
Those are estimates that take projections over the next 80 years, but then calculated in present value terms, in terms of the current dollars. So it weights what we see tomorrow much more heavily than what we see in 80 years.
Short question, short answer. Finland is the envy of many countries all over the world because of education. How long it would take to Argentina to reach the standard of education so as to grow as Finland is doing?
Well, we've never seen any country that's gone that far in the rankings, partly because we haven't had these tests for long enough to see that.
Yes.
What we know is that even in Latin America, the examples of Chile and Colombia and Brazil and Mexico to some extent show that in 15 years you could easily get up to the level of Uruguay that we talked about.
Yes.
And in 30 years you might be able to go much higher to the into the range of OECD countries.
30 years.
Yes.
Okay. Last question. Is it only all this improvement, it is only in terms of the educational system, schooling, but what about the social context, the social values? Because is it possible to get this improvement, to reach this improvement in a society which is not thinking of education as a main issue and is not and in a society where the meritocratic social fabric is not working properly?
Well, that really is the tough question. I think it is possible to develop these norms and to do this, and that it's consistent with the norms of the country, frankly. As I look at middle-class parents in Argentina, they know that they want their kids to be well educated.
Yeah.
And so part of the social structure is trying to find ways to educate less fortunate children.
Okay.
And I think that fits in with the more egalitarian and more equitable notions. At the same time, I think that everybody who thinks about this for very long realizes that it's skills that are really going to pay off both in the labor market and for the country. You want to do the other social aspects,
Yes.
and education does have an important nation-building
Yes.
role and individual building
Yes.
role, but skills are what are going to pay off, and that's what schools know how to do.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. It was the last question. Thank you so much, Eric, for being here.
I'm so pleased to be in Argentina.
Fue Eric Hanushek en Conversaciones de la Nación.
Bien, hasta aquí llegamos. Tema distinto, pero bueno, estos temas de educación siempre queremos forjarlos, trabajarlos, presentarlos con ustedes para poder compartir esta información y en siempre lo que apuntamos, nuestros jóvenes, nuestros hijos, que tengan la mejor capacitación, para tener las mejores oportunidades a futuro, tanto en empleo o en desarrollo humano, en desarrollo intelectual. Es importante que estemos capacitados en todos los temas y en todas las especificaciones que tiene cada una de las carreras, como decimos, en un mundo complejo que va mutando y rotando y evolucionando permanentemente en los niveles de empleo y en la característica que tiene que tener ese empleo y esa capacitación que hay que tener para estar aptos para ser elegidos. Nos vemos con ustedes el próximo martes. Chao.
Hay un banco que hace posible que alcances tus sueños. Banco Provincia, de tu lado.